It's a privilege to participate in the discussion on Operation Sindoor. And like everybody else in this House, I laud the performance of our armed forces and the results that have done this country so proud. Sir, when the Pahalgam attack happened on April 22nd, it was a shocking attack for a variety of reasons. The manner in which people were killed in front of their families, the fact that the fate was asked before killing them, the intent of destroying the economy of Jammu and Kashmir, which had returned to normalcy and prosperity after the end of Article 370. All of this, it angered the country. There was grief, there was shock. Across the world, there was solidarity, there was sympathy. But the question was, what after that? And the answers were two. One, such an attack was absolutely unacceptable. It crossed our red lines. There had to be severe consequences. And two, there had to be accountability and justice. There had to be accountability of the perpetrators, and they and their supporters had to be brought to justice. सर, मैं उनको कहना चाहता हूं, वो कान खोल के सुन लें कि 22 अप्रैल से 16 जून तक एक भी फोन कॉल प्रेसिडेंट ट्रंप और प्राइम मिनिस्टर मोदी के बीच में नहीं।
दिल्ली सीरियल बॉम्ब ब्लास्ट 13 सितंबर 2008 कैनॉट प्लेस, गफार मार्केट and other areas in Delhi involved Indian Mujahideen. People killed 30, injured 133, हताहत हुए। और आपने क्या किया इसके बाद? ये घटना है 2008 की, 2008 की। आपने क्या किया? हमारे पूर्व प्रधानमंत्री स्वर्गीय मनमोहन सिंह met with Asif Ali Zardari on September 2008 at Muzaffarabad, and Puch Rawalkot Road was also open to trade on October 21, 2008. ये हमसे पूछ रहे हैं पहलगाम का क्या हुआ, पहलगाम का क्या हुआ? ये तो वही हुआ कि जिसने जो मुजरिम था वही जज बन करके हमसे पूछने बैठ गया। पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप बहुत महत्वपूर्ण होती है, क्योंकि फौज को आदेश पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप देती है। और इसलिए there is a difference between a responsible government, a responsive government, a sensitive government, a proactive government, and a government which responds according to the need of the hour. और एक दूसरी गवर्नमेंट भी होती है, क्योंकि पॉलिटिकल लीडरशिप का सवाल होता है उपसभापति जी, जिसे हम इनएक्टिव गवर्नमेंट कहते हैं, ल्यूकवार्म एटीट्यूड वाले गवर्नमेंट कहते हैं, नॉन रिएक्टिव नॉन रिस्पॉन्सिव गवर्नमेंट कहते हैं। और इस अंतर को समझने के लिए सिर्फ पहलगाम की एक घटना को आइसोलेशन में देखने से शायद हम देश के साथ और इस नैरेटिव के साथ हम अन्याय करेंगे। हमको इसको संपूर्णता में देखना पड़ेगा, और संपूर्णता में देखना पड़ेगा तो इसको दो फेजेस में देखना पड़ेगा। एक फेज है फ्रॉम 2004 to 2014, वन टाइप ऑफ सेट ऑफ लीडरशिप, और एक फेज है फ्रॉम 2014 to 2025। पहलगाम घटना, दुर्घटना, यह बहुत ही हृदय विदारक है, दुखदाई है, मानवता को झकझोर देने वाली है, और जितनी भी निंदा की जाए वो कम है। यह निंदनीय है, और हम सब लोग एक स्वर से उस घटना की निंदा करते हैं। हमें मालूम है कि 25 भारतीय और एक नेपाली सिटीजन उस घटना में उनकी जीवन लीला समाप्त हुई। घटना ऐसी कठोर थी जो किसी को भी बर्दाश्त और उसकी कल्पना करना भी बहुत दुर्भर हो रहा है और इसलिए हम सब लोग जहां इस घटना का पुरजोर निंदा करते हैं, वहीं हम यह भी बताना चाहते हैं कि हमारी संवेदनशील सरकार के गृह मंत्री घटना दोपहर की है और शाम 5 बजे वो जम्मू कश्मीर के श्रीनगर में पहुंच चुके थे और साथ ही साथ हमारे प्रधानमंत्री जो सऊदी अरेबिया में थे, उन्होंने अपना विजिट को कट शॉर्ट करके रात को ही वहां से चल करके प्रातः वो यहाँ आकर के उन्होंने कैबिनेट कमेटी फॉर सिक्योरिटी और उसकी डिटेल्स की वर्कआउट करने के लिए 23 तारीख को बैठक की। ये सिर्फ मैं इसलिए उद्धृत कर रहा हूं कि मैं ये बताना चाहता हूं कि यह सरकार संवेदनशील सेंसिटिव गवर्नमेंट है और उसी तरीके से उसकी सारी स्ट्रैटेजी प्लानिंग आगे किस तरीके से हम एक्शन में आना है, इस सब चीज की बारीकियों की चर्चा हम कर रहे थे।
So it's obvious. I mean, Prime Minister has not said that Trump is lying. It's obvious what has happened. सबको मालूम है, बोल नहीं पा रहे। That is the reality. अगर पीएम ने बोल दिया तो फिर वो खुल के बोलेगा और वो पूरी सच्चाई रख देगा, तो इसलिए नहीं बोल पा रहे। वो कह क्यों रहा है? क्योंकि वो अपनी ट्रेड डील चाहता है, तो वहां पे दबाएगा इनको। आप देखना कैसी ट्रेड डील बनती है।
जिन शब्दों से प्रधानमंत्री जी और विदेश मंत्री जी ने कहा है, उन शब्दों को आप अगर ध्यान से सुने तो एक गोलमोल शब्द है। डायरेक्टली कहें, राहुल जी ने कल भी कहा, डायरेक्टली कहें कि अमेरिका के जो राष्ट्रपति हैं वो झूठ बोल रहे हैं, कहें सदन में।
All right, I'm going to go straight across to my colleagues tracking that big story for us for days together. The houses are discussing Operation Sindoor threadbare, and arguments have been made both from the side of the government and the opposition. Aishwarya is joining us, and Maushmi Singh also continues to be with us on that big story. I'm going to come to you first. Aishwarya, we've seen a rebuttal there from the External Affairs Minister today, who's also in fact taken a jibe at Rahul Gandhi, talking about how he's linked to China in the sense that they're speaking in one voice from China, and also talking about the fact that, that the opposition is, not looking at its own tenure when the Congress-led UPA was in power and the kind of action that was taken, or rather not taken, when similar attacks had happened all over the country. Aishwarya.
Well, definitely, Sneha. We also saw how there were fingers that were being raised, questions that were being asked. The government said what it has been maintaining since day one, that there is no third power between India and Pakistan. What India did, the ceasefire that we are speaking about, that the world is speaking about, only happened after Pakistan literally begged India for a ceasefire. This is exactly what we saw Defense Minister Rajnath Singh speak about, Home Minister Amit Shah also speak about, and then Prime Minister Narendra Modi also spoke the same thing, that he went ahead and said that there were calls that were being made to Prime Minister Modi from the US. He did not pick up calls for 1 hour. The opposition, obviously, Sneha, is still pointing fingers and saying that this is not the reality. We will also have the Home Minister who will be speaking in Rajya Sabha today on the same, Sneha.
That's right. We are waiting for the Home Minister, in fact, to address the Rajya Sabha in just some time from now. Maushmi is also with us. Maushmi, a point that has been now raised by, in fact, the opposition is a clarity coming in from the government when the External Affairs Minister did say today there was no conversation between the 22nd of April and the middle of June between Prime Minister Narendra Modi and US President Donald Trump, blunting the attack of the opposition that instructions were issued by Donald Trump and hence he was the one to negotiate truce. The government has categorically denied this.
So that's not the first time, Sneha. He's repeated that. He said it in the lower house and said it again in the upper house. But despite that, the opposition and Rahul Gandhi maintains that Prime Minister Modi should have come clean, saying that, he doesn't, what Trump is saying is clearly a lie, and he had never brokered a ceasefire. And if a Prime Minister has the wherewithal, he will, at least 50% of the courage that Indira Gandhi has. Rahul Gandhi said he will speak. And, the opposition is still answering that, asking that question. Many in the opposition believe that the Prime Minister didn't say the T word, didn't talk about Trump, or not, and deny that fact that he's not brokered a ceasefire. He's, in fact, skirted on the issue, is what the opposition believes. But what is interesting is, Sneha, that the discussion in the Rajya Sabha today will culminate with a speech of the Home Minister. The Prime Minister will not be speaking in the Rajya Sabha,
Okay.
which I don't remember that's happened very usually. We've seen Prime Minister speak in the lower house and also in the upper house, whether it's the motion of thanksgiving on President's address or any other important pertinent issue.
Okay.
So that's a deference from the past.
Okay, that's a first, though, is what Mosmi is telling us. I'm going to leave it at that. Mosmi Singh, Aishwarya Paliwal getting asked those details. Now, even as the government and the opposition discuss and debate Operation Sindoor, there are more operations that are being carried out. 5 terrorists have been killed in the last 48 hours in 2 separate military operations. A day after the Pahalgam terrorists were eliminated by forces during Operation Mahadev, today the army neutralized 2 suspected Lashkar terrorists during operations in Jammu and Kashmir's Poonch. A massive political controversy has erupted over names of these operations now. The opposition has alleged that the BJP-led central government is trying to politicize military operations, questioning why the anti-terror drives are being linked to Hindu deities. Countering the opposition's charges, Union Minister Shukanta Majumdar said India is secular because of Hindus, while BJP MP condemned the charges as a bid to politicize this matter as well.
ये सरकार ने जिस तरह से हमारे सैनिक अभियान का राजनीतिकरण किया है, उनका कोर्ट मार्शल ही होना चाहिए। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर, ऑपरेशन महादेव, ऑपरेशन गंगा, ऑपरेशन यमुना, यही करते रहेंगे। ये आप घटिया सोच के लोग हो। आप सैनिक अभियान में भी धर्म लाते हो, जात लाते हो, सब कुछ लाते हो। ऑपरेशन सिंदूर वोट के लिए, ऑपरेशन महादेव वोट के लिए।
Now we are seeing all these operations, Mahadev, Shiv Shakti. Do you think there is an attempt by the BJP to Hinduize the entire thing?
We see it as Indianized. We should have India. They will call those people who were martyred in Pahalgam also with this particular religion. We don't see that they are Indians. They are first Indians and Bharatiyas. We will continue to stress that thing that India, we are all Indians, brothers and sisters. We stand together as India, and we will share our pain and happiness together.
हम कुछ भी हो, कर्म क्या है, ये कुछ भी कहें, कुल मिलाकर की स्थिति है। इन्होंने अमेरिका के दबाव में, ट्रंप के दबाव में विराम किया।
नाम कैसा लगा आपको?
नाम सवाल नहीं है, नाम की बात छोड़िए, कर्म की बात करिए।
आपको लगता है किससे शक्ति मिलती है? शिव शक्ति मिलती है।
जिनका विश्वास है वो जाए।
आपका विश्वास है इसमें?
नो कमेंट।
मतलब आपका विश्वास?
नो कमेंट।
हजारों सालों से यहाँ पे हिंदू रहे, संस्कृति हिंदू की तैयार की गई है। हजारों मंदिर, लाखों मंदिर हिंदुओं के तैयार के। हिंदू यहाँ पे हिंदू की जमीन कौन सी है बताने के लिए बोलिए। वर्ल्ड में तो कितने सारे मुस्लिम कंट्री है, क्रिश्चियन कंट्री भी है। कोई हमारा देश सेकुलर देश है, लेकिन क्यों सेकुलर है? बहुत बार अटल जी से लेकर सभी बोलते आए हैं, जब तक हिंदूज यहाँ पे है तब तक सेकुलरिज्म है। जो भारत का हिस्सा हिंदुस्तान से कट गया वो सेकुलर नहीं रहा। तो उनको जिन पे विश्वास रखिए, कौन मना करता है? सावन का महीना है और उग्रपंथी लोग आए थे हमारे माताओं की सिंदूर मिटाने के लिए। माताओं की सिंदूर जब मिटता है तो महादेव तो तांडव करते हैं। तो अभी तांडव की शुरुआत है, आगे समय आएगा और भी तांडव होगा।
अब ऐसे लोगों का हम कुछ नहीं कर सकते जो शिव को नहीं मानते, और शिव ही सर्वोत्तम है। अब ऐसे लोग के लिए कोई जवाब ही नहीं आता कि अब इनको पगलेट कहें कि इनको कहें कि बुद्धिहीन कहें, या ऐसे लोग कहें कि मोदी जी के विरोध में ये भुला ही जा रहे हैं। बहुत सारे में ये मोदी विरोध का दर्द है और कुछ नहीं है इसमें। इनको शिव नहीं दिखेंगे, राम नहीं दिखेंगे, इनको सनातन नहीं दिखेगा। ये मोदी का भय, मोदी जी का भय, मोदी का डर, ये वो है।
I'm going to go straight across to Piyush Mishra for more details on that story. Piyush, this was but expected, the manner in which the names have been chosen by the government. The opposition says, why name them these operations after Hindu deities? The government really says, what's in a name here?
Well, absolutely, Sneha. We are now seeing as to how massive politics taking place on the Operation Mahadev name, which has been kept by the armed forces, and now we are seeing as to how the opposition political parties are also questioning this. They're questioning the government's intent on this, saying that why to do Hindu-Muslim in this also. After that, we also saw Operation Shiv Shakti term was also coined, to which also a few have raised objections. In fact, we also spoke to a Samajwadi Party MP, Ramjilal Suman, who said that people who believe in Mahadev should be commenting on this. This is, in fact, he was indicating that he doesn't even believe in Lord Mahashiv. So after that, we saw how Ravi Kishan, Sukanto Majumdar, and various other BJP leaders have questioned the intent of opposition political parties, saying that Mahadev is a name which gives power, gives you courage, and that's why the name was put, and why opposition is opposing this. And just for the sake of opposing Narendra Modi, they are also opposing the sentiments of Hindus. That's what various BJP leaders have been heard saying. So the politics taking place on this entire matter. But yes, in the Operation Mahadev, we saw as to have three terrorists who were the perpetrators of Pahalgam terror attack have been neutralized. That another operation has also been launched in other parts of Jammu Kashmir to ensure that all perpetrators are taken to the task.
All right, Piyush, I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. Going across straight now to Mir Farid, joining us from Srinagar at this point in time. Mir, take us through the details of these operations which have now intensified after Operation Mahadev. There are a series of other operations that are being carried out in the valley. Talk to us about the same. In 48 hours, I understand that 2 other terrorists have been neutralized as well.
Yes, Sneha, this was an infiltration bid that was eliminated by the army in Poonch, and 2 infiltrators were killed on the spot on the line of control. Arms and ammunition recovered, and right now, as I speak to you, still search and sanitization operation is on. So overall, yes, we'll see amp up as far as army activity is concerned, because you have inputs of around 70 to 80 non-local hardcore Lashkar and Jaish cadre who are camping in various locations of Jammu and Kashmir, especially the forest area of South Kashmir, the Kashtawar, Kokarnag axis, and all the LOC areas of Jammu. So there is a challenge. It's a clear and present danger, and the security forces are now focusing on that since Amarnath Yatra, which was post Pahalgam attack, a big security challenge. It is going on smoothly, and it's reaching its fag end. So post that, the complete focus will now be on anti-terror operations, especially in the forest areas where the army is increasing its domination. New camps are being set up, and sensitive locations strategically which are being used as forest routes by Lashkar and Jaish will be taken care of, and it is a big challenge. But yes, already we're seeing operations, be it Dachigam and then in Poonch, where 2 infiltrators were killed. Infiltration, we know, is an ongoing thing. Last 35 years been happening, especially in summers, and since launch pads are active, terror camps are active, so this is not going to end, and we could see more infiltration bits in various sensitive areas of line of control. And for that, the anti-infiltration grid is ready if army is to be believed. Yes, some controversy as far as the names of these operations are concerned, the opposition targeting and calling it politicization or criminalization of the armed forces. But so far, obviously, army has not spoken on this since Parliament is in session, and as a protocol, they won't till the Parliament is over. But yes, anti-terror operations happening in various parts of the Jammu and Kashmir, and especially on the line of control. Back to you.
All right, I'm going to leave it at that for the moment. Mir Farid getting us up to speed with those details as far as this operation is concerned, which is ongoing one. Last 48 hours, we've seen intensified activity as far as Jammu and Kashmir region is concerned. Now, in its 36th report on ISIL, Daesh, Al-Qaeda and associated individuals and entities, the United Nations Security Council Sanctions Monitoring Team has named the Resistance Front as a group that claimed responsibility for the 22nd of April terror attack in Pahalgam, Jammu and Kashmir, in which 26 civilians were killed. The UNSC's Analytical Support and Sanctions Monitoring Team said 5 terrorists attacked a tourist spot in Pahalgam. The report notes that TRF had claimed responsibility twice and also published a photograph of the attack site. The UNSC team also cited assertions that this attack could not have happened without support from Pakistan-based Lashkar. This is a big loss of face for Pakistan and an astounding diplomatic victory for India, especially after Pakistan Minister Ishaq Dar had publicly defended TRF, denying allegations of its involvement following the Pahalgam incident. Let's get you details of the proof of Pakistan's link to Pahalgam. Remember, Pakistani voter ID cards have been recovered from 2 terrorists who were neutralized. Terrorists had ration like chocolates made in Pakistan, weapons ballistically linked to Pahalgam attack. Ex-Pak army commando turned Lashkar-e-Taiba commander Musa's body was also found. We'll continue to get you more on that big story. For the moment, you're pausing for a break. On the other side, this tragic story from the national capital on how loneliness has killed in Delhi city. A 25-year-old Delhi chartered accountant killed himself using helium gas. A shocking suicide pattern has emerged. We're telling you more in just a bit.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
How is he always winning?
Gotta have some spin, never bending, dripping in, dripping like so clean.
Moto G96 5G.
Eyes on you. Hello, Moto.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
Hi, here are the top headlines presented by Motorola. UNSC report mentions Lashkar's role in Pahalgam attack. Gujarat ATS nabs lady mastermind of Al-Qaeda terror module. Infiltration bid foiled in Poonch. 2 terrorists killed. Search operation underway.
Dharavi, Asia's largest slum. A city within a city. Home to over 850,000 people. Now, one of India's biggest business tycoon is placing $1 billion bet to transform it. Can Adani truly transform Dharavi and rehabilitate the lives of its residents? Inside this week's India Today, the big Adani gamble. Subscribe now to read the full story.
Moto G96 5G. All eyes on you.
How is he always winning?
Gotta have some spin, never bending, dripping in, dripping like so clean.
Moto G96 5G.
Eyes on you. Hello, Moto.
Combined, the NISAR mission, a collaborative effort between ISRO and NASA, will demonstrate India's space engineering capabilities for global-scale Earth observation. This satellite will enable ISRO to monitor seasonal changes, including forest dynamics, mountain shifts and glacier movements. Here's more.
In an era where climate change dominates global discourse, humanity faces an increasing vulnerability to natural disasters. To address these mounting challenges, NASA and ISRO have joined forces in an extraordinary collaboration to launch the NASA-ISRO Synthetic Aperture Radar Satellite. This groundbreaking low Earth orbit, LEO Observatory, promises to revolutionize the way we understand our dynamic planet. Equipped with state-of-the-art L and S-band synthetic aperture radar, SAR systems, NISAR will use the sweep SAR technique to deliver high-resolution images across vast swaths of the Earth's surface. Incredibly, it will map the entire globe every 12 days, offering unprecedented
All right, my colleagues are now joining us for the very latest on that. Pramod Madhav joining us. And also we have Shibu Tripathi, our Senior Assistant Editor of Science. Thank you both for your time. First, coming to you, Pramod. In just about 9 odd minutes from now, we will see the historic launch of NISAR. Talk to us a little about the moment that is something that we will be witnessing in roughly 9 minutes, and the huge significance of this project. Why is it so important? We know that climate change, of course, has become is a global discourse in a sense. And this is something that is going to address just so many problems and answer so many questions associated with that one aspect, isn't it?
It surely is, Neha. In fact,
Yes.
we have to say there are only a handful of space agencies, capable space agencies across the globe. And imagine NASA and ISRO coming up together for one satellite launch, one rocket launch. And the interesting aspect here is that today is going to be a GSLV Mark II, and I'm kind of blessed to be here because we would stand here and we can actually not just view it, but also feel the rumble as it goes up to the space as well. So this particular launch itself is very important because ISRO is going in, it's going to show the globe the might and the strength of its launch vehicles, especially the GSLV series right now. And along with it, we have the NISAR. Just like you mentioned, it's a very important mission, almost 10 years in planning and manufacturing, almost $1.5 billion spent on it. And also, this is very important because for the next 5 years, with this particular satellite carrying the L band and the S band, the synthetic aperture radars, it is going to give us a very clear, really millimeter variation pictures of a lot of subjects. And the very important aspect here is that if we are going to use any kind of satellites for imaging, if you are going to use image observation like photo image observation or such, those satellites do not have the ability, those sensors to penetrate these clouds
system which the globe is almost covered with, and right now we have a specific satellite which is actually going to use radar and those particular radar waves in particular, through which we can actually learn about the glacial movements, so many things for the entire globe. And if you're going to learn about India alone, imagine we have landslides, we have earthquakes, we have like flood patterns and such, and NISAR is going to give us a pattern which is definitely going to help with the scientific community in not just predicting but also learning about what is exactly happening with Earth, the way we are communicating with it, Sneha.
You know, what's also very interesting, and talk to us a little about that, Shibu, is about how minute details would be provided. Like Pramod has also been telling us, I mean, small millimeter kind of movements that would help us in the longer run. Take us to the details of how specifically NISAR is going to be pointing out the changes that are going to be, monitoring the crops, the soil moisture. I mean, that is the extent to which all of this is going to be tracked.
Sneha, this is one of the most important satellite missions undertaken by US and India jointly. The Indian Space Research Organization and NASA has been working on this satellite for about 10 years. A decade has gone into development of this satellite. Yes. Now, the satellite is capable of observing changes to millimeter level. Now, even a centimeter shift in the surface of the planet will be observed by this satellite. It's capable of penetrating through vegetation, penetrating through dark clouds, observing even in the dead of the night. Now, a lot of the complaints of researchers and scientists who have been in the business have been that the satellites have been unable to penetrate the vegetation, the forest cover across the world. Now, this satellite has two specific radar systems that have been developed, S-band radar and the L-band radar. The S-band has been developed by India, the L-band has been developed by NASA. Okay. Together, when these two radars combine, they have extreme penetration that can go through clouds, that can go through forest covers. Even one of the biggest example is the 8.8 magnitude earthquake that we had today in Kamchatka Peninsula. Yes. Now this NISAR satellite, once it begins operational, it will be able to conduct a lot of damage assessment. It will provide researchers and scientists with a lot of information when it comes to preparedness for tackling these kind of disasters. It will be also very, very beneficial for agriculture in soil, assessing soil moisture and the daily changes that are happening. At the moment, the world is going through massive changes in the climate. The climatic patterns are shifting. In fact, in India, the monsoon pattern is going through a major upheaval. So once the NISAR satellite begins operations after 90 days of launch, we'll be getting a lot of data, high resolution images, high resolution spatial
Shiva, I'm just going to come back to you for more details on that, even as we stay with these live pictures coming in from ISRO.
846 किलोन्यूटन का प्रणोद उत्पन्न करता है. यह लगभग 146 सेकंड तक प्रज्वलित रहकर यान को 338 किलोमीटर की ऊंचाई तथा 3.5 किलोमीटर प्रति सेकंड की सापेक्ष गति पर ले आएगा. द्वितीय चरण के दौरान यान से ऊष्मा कवच यानी पेलोड फेयरिंग को अलग कर दिया जाता है और यान क्लोज लूप गाइडेंस के अंतर्गत अपना दिशा निर्धारण करता है. द्वितीय चरण की समाप्ति के
it will be ignited 3.5 kilometer per second relative velocity. During the second stage,
closed loop guidance के अंतर्गत अपना दिशा निर्धारण. द्वितीय चरण की समाप्ति के पूर्व ही तृतीय चरण.
After the completion of second stage, the third stage will be started. The cryogenic fuel.
और सबसे जटिल
GSLV, the third and the last stage.
चरण के पूर्ण प्रज्वलन की
In this cryo stage, the ignition
अतिरिक्त प्रणोद के लिए कमांड दिया जाएगा.
So the command will be given for 11%
क्रायोजेनिक इंजन का
additional
75 किलोन्यूटन का प्रणोद उत्पन्न करता है. इस तरह
onboard computer by this way
के साथ यान लगभग 400 सेकंड में 780 किलोमीटर की ऊंचाई प्राप्त कर चुका होगा और सापेक्ष गति 4.57 किलोमीटर प्रति सेकंड. इसके पश्चात क्रायो चरण को पुनः सामान्य प्रणोद के लिए कार्यशील किया जाएगा और फिर 400 सेकंड
after that 400 second 7.5 kilometer per second relative velocity will be applied. So it will be getting
Live pictures coming in. In just about 2 minutes from now, we will see that big takeoff happen. Remember, reporters have been telling about how this is in fact is a satellite that has got all-weather day-night capability. It's a major international collaboration. And like Shibu was telling us about, Shibu, you were talking to us about how this is going to be providing early warnings and faster disaster response, which is just so important, you know, to save lives, reducing economic losses and natural disasters like the kind we saw today.
12 seconds. And that of the L-40s is
going to be one of the most critical missions undertaken by ISRO and US. This also shows that India is very serious when it comes to climate crisis, mitigating climate disasters, preparing for climate disasters in the coming years. The NISAR satellite will be used as one of the biggest tools. Now, one of the most advantage of NISAR mission is that the data is openly available globally. In near real time, the data will be provided to researchers, scientists across the world. And the most important that it's all free of cost. So scientists, researchers will not have to pay any money to access those data. The data will be available in the ISRO's archival units, in NASA's archival units, and will be provided free of cost to researchers and scientists across the world. Going forward, once the satellite launches, in about 18 minutes, the satellite will be deployed from the GSLV rocket, which has been developed by India. This is also a coming around for India, which has been developing the cryogenic engine. The NISAR mission is going to take forward that legacy, which was the technology was once blocked for ISRO by the NASA itself, and now today it's an ISRO customer. So going forward,
Shibu, be with us to tell our viewers in just about less than a minute. You'll see the historic launch happen. We're talking about the NISAR satellite. It's a major collaboration between NASA and ISRO, demonstrating global cooperation on critical planetary changes. Let's take a listen.
An operational philosophy unique to the GSLV F-16 NISAR mission is that cusp stage is operated by 11% for the duration of 400 per second.
Minus 25 seconds.
We are mere 25 seconds from the launch.
All our movies open. Minus 20 seconds.
सभी दर्शक हमारे साथ बने रहिए।
सर्वप्रथम
T- 4.8 सेकंड्स पर L-40s का प्रज्वलन हम देखेंगे।
10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 0.
All L-40 engines generating nominal thrust. S-139 motor ignited.
5 seconds.
That's a magnificent of the GSLV F-16 NISAR mission. The deafening roar of GSLV and beautiful silhouette brightening the Sriharikota sky.
जी हाँ, अभी आपने देखा चारों L-40 तथा कोर बूस्टर S-139 का सफल प्रज्वलन और GSLV F-16 का उत्थापन द्वितीय प्रमोचन मंच से, और ये अपने गंतव्य की ओर बढ़ता हुआ। हम यहाँ कंपन महसूस कर पा रहे हैं मिशन नियंत्रण केंद्र पर।
The first stage of GSLV with S-139 solid core motor and 4 L-40 liquid strap-ons thrusting together. 7,800 kilonewton cumulative thrust.
First stage performance normal.
Sharwan is in main auto.
The day of launch wind biasing program that is fed into the onboard computers helped the rocket to veer through the atmosphere with minimal aerodynamic loads.
प्रथम चरण का कोर बूस्टर लगभग 100 सेकंड्स तक प्रज्वलित रहेगा तथा L-40 चरण 150 सेकंड तक प्रज्वलित रहकर शांत हो जाएंगे। तत्पश्चात इसे यान से पृथक कर दिया जाएगा। वर्तमान में सभी तंत्र सामान्य निष्पादन करते हुए और यान अपने अपेक्षित पथ का अनुकरण करता हुआ जा रहा है।
Currently the rocket is in open loop guidance. Shar ground station is tracking.
S-139 burnout.
कोर बूस्टर का प्रज्वलन समाप्त हो चुका है।
Here we have an announcement from the Range Operations Director that the core booster has stopped its operation. The 4 L40s are thrusting still.
All right, big story that we're breaking at this hour. Big announcement that is coming from President Donald Trump on 25% trade tariff on India. Finally, that announcement has been made. Donald Trump has spoken about it, and I quote him, "Remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world, and they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Also, they've always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia, and Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop the killing in Ukraine. All things not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting on the 1st of August. Thank you for your attention to this matter. Make America great again." That's what Donald Trump has said. Doing what was expected, however, extremely disappointing for India. 25% tariff on India, something that India had been working very hard to negotiate for days and weeks, months together actually. But the trade deal has now been, in fact, it's been signed along dotted lines with this announcement coming in of 25% tariff. Also taking a jibe at India for doing business with Russia. I'll be going across to my colleagues from India Today Global in a moment from now. But for the moment, first to Karishma Sudani, my colleague from Business Today, for the very latest on that. Karishma, disappointing but expected, isn't it?
Absolutely disappointing.
Yes.
In fact, this is not something that we were expecting, especially after the UK FTA that was recently signed, where India's Commerce Minister has been reiterating that a fine example was set, a foundational example was set for the US to negotiate with India. But it looks like India's tough stance of not compromising on its sensitive sectors of agri, dairy and genetically modified crops has led this 25% tariff on India. This is not going to go a long way. In fact, I was speaking to an economist today, and we predicted that this sentiment is going to pull the APAC market down for a while, because after China, if there was something that the world was looking forward to in terms of a transitional corridor for supply of goods to the US and from the US to APAC, then that was India. But with 25% tariff, this is not going to go a long way. But I also want to give a parallel perspective to this, and this is to check our export baskets to the US. If we look at our export baskets to the US, then keeping pharmaceuticals aside, we are not much in terms of exporting, and that could save up from some kind of implications that are about to come. But if Donald Trump goes ahead and puts some kind of tariff on pharmaceuticals, then that will be something to look forward to, because that will put us in a major trade deficit owing to the fact that our pharma exports are maximum to the US.
That's right. I'm going to talk to you about that and what's the kind of impact that's going to have on products that is being bought and sold. But before that, a quick word from Pranay Upadhyay also. Pranay, not just a big announcement of this tariff of 25%, which is huge in any case, but also a penalty announces Donald Trump. I mean, this is something that's going to be obviously seen and, with a lot of disappointment, isn't it? And also, as far as politics back home is concerned, expecting the opposition to latch on to this, especially because the session is also underway in Parliament.
Indeed, a lot of pressure, and in fact, this is entirely a pressure game, Sneha. If you see, President Donald Trump has, asserted a massive pressure by this announcement, because the additional, penalty on the account of the Russian trade. India buys a huge amount of oil from Russia, but that is also driven by India's demand, because India is one of the largest consumer of the energy, and that's why we are an energy deficient country. That's why we need to buy the energy. And we have explained our position many a times. But clearly, President Donald Trump here is seen to be making a pressure on India, while on the other side, we have entire negotiation process since February 2025 onwards.
we have made it clear that we are not going to reel under any pressure. We are not going to sign any deal as per any deadline. Because if you see, Sneha, that the India-UK FTA negotiation, that also lasted for that. The initial deadline for that India-UK FTA was Diwali 2022, but we got that FTA deal sealed or signed even in July 2025. So clearly, these are the very complex negotiation process. But President Donald Trump has already made this announcement. So now we have to see how the Indian Commerce Ministry or Indian Ministry of External Affairs is going to react to these announcements, because we have to see that the net resultant, the net outcome of these tariffs. Because President Donald Trump has already signed and announced the arrangements or tariff agreements with many other countries. So we have to see that what is the net result.
Also, what I find extremely interesting, and talk to us a little about the manner in which he's brought in Russia and all of this, also saying that historically India and Russia are doing more business than they, India does more business than Russia than they do with us. So it's that element as well, which is obviously being factored here by the American president on making this announcement, plus the announcement of the penalty, isn't it?
Definitely, he has been making these noises for quite some time.
Yes.
You have heard when Prime Minister Narendra Modi visited for Brasilia for the BRICS, he has made these remarks about BRICS being a redundant and a non-functional or non-impactful organization, to putting additional penalties on BRICS countries on the account of doing business with Russia and buying Russian oil and the military hardware supply from Russia. So clearly on these accounts, US and the President Donald Trump is trying to create a pressure on the BRICS countries. But we have to see that on one side his team is all scheduled to visit India in the later part of August. We have to see that whether Howard Lutnick and his US Commerce Secretary, whether he sends his team or not now, since the tariff has already been announced. And he had made some pertinent and some peculiar remarks about India, that India has highest tariff barriers. Look, we have highest tariff barrier on account of protecting our domestic manufacturers, especially the agriculture sector, especially the dairy product and dairy sector.
Something that was non-negotiable, isn't it? Protecting the dairy sector and the agriculture sector, Karishma, was a non-negotiable for India. And we've maintained this position throughout, is obviously something that has irked, Karishma, the US president.
Absolutely. I think what we must not ignore the fact is the non-tariff barriers, the penalties on non-tariff barriers that he has put, which Sneha clearly hints to the fact that Trump's move is actually meant to pressure India to make it easier for US businesses to operate and not just import goods. And if India is not willing to negotiate and budge on these aspects, then looks like it's going to be way more stringent. Let's not forget of the Indian diaspora that resides in the US, especially when it comes to the tech and digital sector. And if punishments or penalties on non-tariff barriers pertaining to licensing rules, local content rules, or data localization laws comes in, then it is going to demotivate and demoralize a lot of our diaspora, which is operating in the US for years.
Well, absolutely. Pranay, just give us an idea about what's going to be the way forward, because there's an important meeting that was scheduled towards the end of August, to be specific on the 25th of August. So will that really change anything or not?
We still have to wait for that, whether the US delegation would be visiting or not. But I hope so, that there will be a delegation level talks between India and United States. The 6th round of bilateral trade agreement negotiations, which are likely to take place in New Delhi on the date you specified, like 25th to 26th of August 2025. And we have to see that how India would want to engage United States on these negotiations. As Karishma was pointing it out, that barring few areas, especially the pharmaceutical sector and some of the service sector components, our exports are not going to be largely, we are not very heavily dependent on on United States as far as our exports are concerned. In any case, if you see the trade arrangement between India and United States, there are certain things. And recently, on account of the steel, we have seen that how the increase of tariffs have actually resulted into the some relief on account of the steel exports, because because the net resultant was that the 25% which 35% when increased to 55%.
Yes.
On account of certain commodities and on certain categories of the steel, it actually resulted into the reduction of tariff duties to up to 22%.
Okay,
so clearly
be with
we
us.
have to see. Yeah.
I'm just going to come back to you in a moment from now. Pranay Upadhyay, I'm going to bring in Siddharth Zarabi, also editor of Business Today, in this conversation. Siddharth, what's your take on what has been announced? We've been talking about how this was anticipated, however, extremely disappointing, plus the jibe that Trump has taken against us, talking about how we've been dealing with Russia for a while now, announcement of penalty on top of the 25% tariff announcement.
Well, very clearly, this is not a tariff-related action alone.
Yes.
As we've been saying this in the past as well, non-tariff issues which have been highlighted by the US Trade Representative in its report, and I believe now this addition of the Russia element is clearly both a break and a breach in faith in terms of the spirit of the negotiations that we've been having. It's very clear over the past 3 months that India has engaged with a very, very open mind with the United States. And remember, this is the same country which has walked quite a lot in the UK free trade agreement. So it's not as if we are being protectionist, but it's very clear at this stage that President Donald Trump has possibly set in motion a series of events that could be very counterproductive for the overall US strategy for this region. And I'm talking about matters beyond trade. I believe the emphasis on Russian military, Russian energy is completely misplaced. And perhaps this is an indication of frustration on behalf of the United States for being unable to push India on its core concerns of protecting the Indian dairy sector, protecting Indian farmers. We've had hints of that from the Indian establishment over the past 1 month especially. And coming as it does just a day after Prime Minister Narendra Modi and other leaders, including Foreign Minister S Jaishankar, made it very clear in both the upper and the lower house of the Indian Parliament that President Trump had absolutely zero role to play in any sort of ceasefire or cessation of hostilities with regard to Operation Sindoor. I think now this is moved beyond trade, and perhaps our response from the Indian side will take into factor this unfair move by the United States. Does it put the negotiations at risk? I don't think we have a clear answer at this stage yet.
Okay, but what is going to be the impact of, or rather, what would be the significance in this context of the meeting that were to take place, Siddharth, on the 25th of August, something that I asked Pranay as well. Will that change anything? Essentially, because we thought that we were still talking, isn't it?
Well, that I heard that question, and what I would add to the previous answer to that is the following. Look at the current state of negotiations that the United States is having with various other countries. Anybody would characterize this, and even the best friend of President Donald Trump's Trumpisms would say that American negotiations with some of its best partners have been characterized by U-turns, confusion, lack of clarity, off-the-cuff statements, and diplomacy over Twitter or Truth Social. Japan, which has been one of the strongest allies of the United States for decades now, left recent negotiations completely bewildered and puzzled as to what does the United States really want from them. This is the case with many other countries. And remember, the centerpiece really of President Trump's actions was to reduce the dependence of America and its economy on China. Yet see the kind of near groveling that the US is to have a trade deal with China. So I think the US establishment believed that brinkmanship can work with India, the kind of brinkmanship that has worked with certain other countries.
Right.
And last minute deals like the European Union. But we must say, and I will quickly just add this point, it's very clear that as far as India and our stance has been, we are willing to continue to trade but not at the cost of our national security or respect.
And that is something that has been emphasized upon throughout these conversations that we've been having for months together on how our dairy and our agriculture sector has to be protected. Our domestic interests first, like their domestic interests first for them, isn't it? This clearly is something that has irked the US. Siddharth.
Well, absolutely. Let's take a look at the manner in which smaller economies have been dealt with by the United States. For 40 years, 4 decades and more, the United States championed outsourcing of its industries, including industries that cause pollution, including industries that lead to environmental degradation. The developing world, Asia, South Asia, has borne the white man's burden for ensuring that American consumers continue to get cheap goods, cheaper services, and they live off the labor and the dollar exchange rate arbitrage that United States companies are famous for. President Trump believes that it's time for Atmanirbhar United States, but clearly every single trade engagement that has been struck so far has not yielded either a reduction in prices for the American consumer or great wins when it comes to domestic manufacturing. I keep coming back to this back and forth with China. If China is United States' greatest enemy and long-term rival that can upstage America's stage as the numero uno economic military superpower in the world, look at what has happened in the past 90, 100 days.
That's right.
And is there a strategy behind this? I don't know. And in all of that, pushing India into a corner for protecting the energy needs of 1.2 billion Indians when we do not have domestic crude supplies and American crude cannot reach us. We are too far away.
That's right.
Where
so that,
do
like
we
you
go?
rightly said, this has moved way, way beyond trade, hasn't it? Continue to be with us. I'm going to hand it over to my colleague Akshita Nandgopal, who is now joining us with more on that big story.
Thanks very much, Sneha. And that's right. The big story we're focusing on right now is America announcing that they will now slap a 25% tariff on India. And I want to first read out for you exactly what the US President Donald Trump has said. As expected, he's announced it on social media with a detailed post where he says, remember, while India is our friend, we have over the years done relatively little business with them because their tariffs are far too high, among the highest in the world. And they have the most strenuous and obnoxious non-monetary trade barriers of any country. Also, they've always bought a vast majority of their military equipment from Russia and are Russia's largest buyer of energy, along with China, at a time when everyone wants Russia to stop killing all in Ukraine. All things not good. India will therefore be paying a tariff of 25% plus a penalty for the above starting on August 1st. This is the message from Donald Trump. He signed it off saying, MAGA, make America great again. So you see the details that he's put out. Donald Trump saying, yes, India's a friend, and then going on with a whole number of caveats to that, referring to the fact that India has ties with Russia. Suddenly he's offended by that, talking about a tariff of 25% plus a penalty he talks of. He says there's a penalty because of the fact that India has ties with Russia. And he says this kicks off from August 1st. So in 2 days from now, that was the deadline that was issued for other countries. But for India, it was assumed that's not going to be the case because there have been talks for that trade deal. But this is the big breaking news that's coming in with Donald Trump announcing a 25% tariff. We're still awaiting an official reaction from India to this. We're standing by for that. It's expected any time now. But let me give you, in fact, a sense of exactly what Trump had said barely 24 hours ago when he was asked about that trade deal with India. Here's what he'd said then.
India's they're my friends and he's my friend. And, you know, they ended the war with Pakistan at my request, and that was great. And Pakistan did also. You know, we did a lot of great settlements, including the recent one, as you know, with Cambodia, So that was a great one. I think that's been pretty well finalized now, right?
I don't know. I'm asking you.
Did I do a good job in that one? I did a good job in about 5 different wars. Do you think I'll get credit for it? No.
So,
will I get credit for it? She'll say yes. No.
Is the deal with India finalized?
No, it's not.
Okay. So what rate are you expecting?
Well, we're going to see. We're going to see. But India's been a good friend, but India has charged basically more tariffs than almost any other country.
So there you had him confirming that yes, talks are on for the trade deal. But suddenly now he's put out the detailed statement that I just read for you. I want to bring in Karishma Asudani of Business Today. We have Pranay Upadhyay of India Today Global. Siddharth Zarabi also joining us. And we have Rohit Sharma who's joining us live from Washington, D.C. Rohit, what's led to this decision by the Trump administration? Barely 24 hours ago, he was saying that yes, talks are underway for a trade deal. Clearly something went wrong in the dialogue, in those talks. There was no middle ground that was reached between India and America.
Well, I wouldn't say things went down in the past 24 hours. We've seen the Indian delegation travel to the U.S. multiple times this year after Prime Minister Modi's visit in February. I think President Trump has been delaying this. From what I've been told, is that he was the one who was holding this deal. Indian side had agreed to certain talking points. They were talk about phase 1 and phase 2 of the trade deal, but Secretary Lutnick and President Trump, they wanted to negotiate more. And as it turns out that, he was approaching his deadline of announcing these tariffs, and clearly he was not happy with whatever India had presented to the Americans. So he does what he does. He goes to social media, announces this 25% tariff. And I also do know for a fact that this was the worst case scenario imagined by the Indian side. They were trying to get this trade deal done before August 1st, and they did not want a similar letter that he was sending out a couple of weeks ago. So, and another thing that I have to point out, he said not all things are well, in his social media post. That also points towards this downward spiral where the relationship is headed right now. I mean, clearly he's saying out loud that things are not fine between India and the U.S.
Absolutely. Siddharth, what's really gone wrong? What's led to this sudden announcement in typical Trump fashion directly on social media? It looked like the talks would take a bit more time. There was, a conversation about a delegation from America coming to India also for another round of talks. And suddenly this announcement out of the blue. Is it an announcement out of the blue also for the government?
Well, it's not an announcement out of the blue for our government or for any other government that has been dealing with President Trump and his frequent back and forth as far as trade is concerned. It's very clear that President Trump started off with the objective, and those are rolling objectives. So, frankly speaking, when we've been in touch with people in the Indian establishment who've been tracking this very, very closely and have some involvement in this, they have themselves been puzzled by what the US really seeks to achieve. I just want to add one point that we had learned from US-based sources just as recently as last week, that the final contours of the Indian proposal and what the US trade negotiators had to say to that had been put up in a so-called file to President Trump. It was virtually said to be on his desk for a decision. So very clearly, this is President Trump's call. And at a late stage, it's clear that the Russian military and Russian energy imports question has been brought in. Remember that the influential US politician Lindsay has also proposed very punitive penalties and is been trying to move a bill through the US legislative process towards this end. I think President Trump, in announcing the penalty, I think has laid the grounds for grave potential damage to Indian-US trade ties. As far as we know, there was never an expectation of the Russian energy import being brought in at this stage. It's clear that this is a pressure tactic because numerous times this point has been made clear by the Indian side as to why we are dependent on Russian fuel. And, Europe continued with Russian fuel, so why single out India?
Very true. Very true. And this is something that we've repeatedly reiterated, that it almost seems right now that this is Trump going ahead and punishing India for his sometimes dost, sometimes dushman stand when it comes to Russia, Pranay. And that's what it is. You know, you see this kind of post that Trump has put out where he's talking about India's ties with Russia. It's not just now a 25% tariff that we're talking about, but also penalties, which we don't know what really that means, because he's only said that penalties for the above, referring to India-Russia ties. Suddenly, it's become a sticking point when it never was previously between India and America.
You're absolutely right, Akshita, and I would like to take forward the point made by Siddharth just a while ago, that this is certainly a package where he has clubbed the Russia angle with the tariff announcement clearly. But as far as our purchases of oil is concerned from Russia, this is clearly a national security issue for us. India is a most populous country. India has huge energy requirement and energy deficit. We need sustainable source of energy supply for our national needs, and those are the non-compromisable areas for India. As far as the pricing issues are concerned, we have heard those things. The price cap issue, long there was a back forth on that issue, but we have almost abided by that price cap thing. But we continued buying Russian oil because of our energy needs, and we need a sustainable supply of energy. And as far as the military hardware is concerned, there is a long history of military supplies, and US, there was a time when US has been a consistent supplier of military hardware to Pakistan, and on the other side they did not supply military hardware to India. But if you see post last 20 years, there has been over $20 billion worth of military hardware India purchased from the United States, right, from C-17 to C-130J to M777 gun to 6-or guns. The list is very long. So therefore, we are buying military hardware from the United States. But there is a history, there is a legacy, and you can't replace military hardware like the aircrafts. We have Sukhois, we have MiG-29s, we have MiG-21s in our fleet, and we need spare parts, we need replacement of the aircraft and upgrade as well.
Yeah, and so clearly at this point, while Trump, refers to defense ties, refers to the fact that we're buying oil from Russia, this was never an issue previously, and yet Trump details it out in this particular post. We're getting reactions coming in. I'll request Siddharth, Karishma, Rohit and Pranay to stay with us. Let's cut across to the reactions.
As soon as copy will address the arguments, and that is listed for 2nd of August.
So they have, like today also it was not discussed about his barrack change. So it was again...
So no, it...
इस पर कोई ना कोई ऐसा कदम उठाएगी, ट्रम्प सरकार से बातचीत भी की संभावना भी हो सकती है इस पे, कि जिसमें भारत के उत्पाद अमेरिका के बाज़ार में किस प्रकार से ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा जा पाए, उसकी चिंता भी निश्चित रूप से उसमें होगी।
कैट के भी आप सेक्रेटरी हैं, सवाल ये है कि आपको क्या लगता है इससे किस तरह से व्यापार पे असर पड़ेगा?
देखिए, अगर 25% टैरिफ लगता है तो निश्चित रूप से भारत का जो सामान है वो महंगा अवश्य होगा, तो कुछ एक्सपोर्ट पर प्रभाव पड़ सकता है, बट टैरिफ अभी लगा है, अभी उसका अध्ययन करना बाकी है।
रशिया से आप ज़्यादा सामान ले रहे हैं, इस तरह की बात ट्रम्प कह रहे हैं, पेनल्टी लगाने की वो बात कर रहे हैं। आपको लगता है कि भारतीय मार्केट को कहीं ना कहीं सफ़र करना पड़ेगा?
तो मुझे लगता है कि इस पूरे ट्रम्प का जो बयान आया है, उस बयान के आलोक में सारी चीज़ों का एक बार से अध्ययन करना पड़ेगा। वो कौन से उत्पाद हैं जिन पर इसका ज़्यादा फ़र्क पड़ सकता है, या वो कौन से उत्पाद हैं जो ज़्यादा जिनसे बाज़ार बनाया जा सकता है। थोड़ा वक्त लगेगा, लेकिन मुझे उम्मीद है कि ट्रम्प प्रशासन को भी बहुत जल्दी शायद ये बात समझ में आएगी और ये विड्रॉ भी होने की संभावनाएं मुझे दिखाई देती है।
Sir, in English, how do you see the tariff which has now been imposed?
Well, this is very unfortunate, and it certainly needs a thorough review at our level as to how it will impact the Indian trade and industry in comparison to the goods which are likely to have good market in US.
So, sir, do you think that it is going to have a drastic impact on Indian market?
Well, first of all, we have to just study the impact and all that. Only after that we can say something on it.
Okay, thank you for speaking to us. Piyush Mishra, BJP MP.
So a reaction there that's just come in from Praveen Khandelwal. Reactions pouring in, but we're still waiting for an official government stand, for an official reaction from the government on what's happened right now. On Trump announcing on social media that there'll be a 25% tariff on India starting August 1st, along with penalties for our ties with Russia. And Siddharth, if you look at really what we're expecting in terms of a government response, how can really the government respond to something like this, to this announcement of a 25% tariff? And what really does this mean to the conversation and the dialogue between India and America for a trade deal?
Well, clearly, the government has continued to respond and provide facts and details to the United States right from the time that this started. I would argue that Indian negotiators and at the highest levels of the political establishment, there was a very clear directive that we need to get a deal done with the United States, but that cannot come at the cost of national interest. I just want to add one quick perspective of why this US action is very short term and confounds even the basic maths that is involved with every trade negotiation. Remember when President Trump came up with this famous tariff sheet and you realize the absurd calculations that had gone into it. According to one research input from GTRI in India, while there is a goods-related trade deficit where we sell more to the United States than we import from them, there is a close to $80 to $85 billion advantage that the United States and US companies derive from India. And that is not goods, that's over and above. And what is that? Around $25 billion is the money that Indian students are estimated to spend in the United States. That's not factored in goods trade. American banks, consulting firms earn significant amount of revenue as per this research, around $15 billion annually. You have $15 to $20 billion that global capability centers, GCCs, get from India. And remember, big tech, that makes massive amounts of money. All the YouTube, the Facebook, Twitter, all of that money that they get from advertising from India goes to the United States. So it's a very blinkered, partial view. And I know that the Indian argument to the United States was to take a look at the overall comprehensive nature of the partnership. And one quick point, it's not as if India has turned its eyes away from US military purchases. If you see over the past 20 years, that equation has reversed. But as any defense expert would tell you, it's the conditionalities that the United States imposes, including very little transfer of technology, that come in the way of purchasing in US military hardware. And forget the visuals of a F-35 stuck in India for weeks on end.
Yeah, very true. And let's just focus also on the reactions coming in right now. Siddharth, stay with us. Jairam Ramesh of the Congress has just put out a statement. As expected, the opposition questioning the government, saying, how did this happen? Jairam Ramesh has put out a post on social media where he said that all that tarif between Prime Minister Modi and Trump has meant little. Mr. Modi thought that if he kept quiet on the insults that Trump has hurled on India, he's referring to the mediation claims by Trump, that this wouldn't happen, that India would get special treatment at the hands of President Trump. Clearly, that hasn't happened. So politics, as expectedly, playing out right now with the opposition questioning the government over this 25% tariff decision that has been taken, which we will keep track of. But let's continue decoding really the decision that's been taken by America and why it's been taken. And right now, the big question mark is over the statement that Donald Trump has put out. Rohit, I'll come across to you on that. You know, the particular mention of Russia repeatedly, about India's ties with Russia in defense, about India's ties with Russia in buying oil. Does this mean now that America is going to start penalizing every country, because there are many out there who are also dealing with Russia right now? It's not just India.
Well, look, President Trump's been trying to somehow rein in this war that's been ongoing. He said he would have a resolution in a day after he got elected. It's been more than 6 months. He hasn't been successful. He keeps changing his minds and he keeps changing his ways to bring about peace in Ukraine-Russia war. So is he going to do this for each and other country? Is he going to do the same similar thing with China? Only the administration would know. But I think as far as India is concerned, I think he's hitting India where it hurts the most. India has a dependence on energy. India wants to buy Russian oil. It cannot survive without it. And I think he's pointing out the things that India essentially cannot change, including buying military equipment, which India has done for decades. So it is very surprising that Donald Trump would put things out there that actually hits India and its nerve, and then coming out and saying not everything is well, which, as I've said before, is pointing towards a larger issue here. I think there's much more going on beyond what we know at this point in time, and we'll probably hear from him more today as he engages with reporters at the White House today.
You look at his statement, he starts off saying India is a great friend, but, and lists a series of issues that he has, and then ends it, of course, referring to a 25% tariff. It doesn't stop there. He says 25% tariff plus penalties on India. So that's been announced by Trump right now. I want to bring in Karishma Asudani also from Business Today on this. Karishma, you've been tracking all the contours of the trade deal, the talks between India and America for the last many months. What really have been the sticking points, Karishma, that's unfortunately led to us being at this stage now where Trump has announced a 25% tariff?
Akshita, one of my colleagues was just mentioning about the fact that how this has been a pressure
just before that, Karishma, my apologies for interrupting, but let me bring in Manikam Tagore, Congress MP on this broadcast. Mr. Tagore, what do you make of the announcement made by Donald Trump that now India will face a 25% tariff?
This is the next level of the failure of the government of India, which has been silent for whenever Mr. Trump was speaking other things. On the Operation Sindoor also, Mr. Trump mentioned again and again and again 27 times that he only done that ceasefire. And why we were asking, leader of opposition Rahul Gandhi asked yesterday also to the Prime Minister that he should clarify and he should say that Mr. Trump is lying. Mr. Prime Minister is not doing it in the he's approaching the whole game with the US in a defensive manner. When you go defensive in any kind of negotiation, this will only happen. If you are not going, they don't know how to negotiate with the Americans, and completely the Indian our negotiating team led by Piyush Goyal as well as the Foreign External Affairs Minister S Jaishankar are started to fail under pressure. They should not come under pressure, and they should always deal with strength. And without strength, if you surrender to the Trump doctrine or Trump's this kind of announcement, India will be in a very difficult situation, and we should fight these kind of announcements, these kind of decisions by the Americans in a strong way.
Okay, Mr. Manikam Tagore, thank you very much for joining us with your view on the announcement that's been made by Donald Trump. The opposition asking questions of the government right now on what exactly led to this decision by Donald Trump. Clearly, talks went south between India and America, and that's what's led to Trump. Though, of course, with Trump, there's always a great degree of uncertainty, of unpredictability that seems to have come into effect in this particular case too, which is why on social media, the first announcement was made. Karishma, my apologies for cutting you off earlier. Go ahead.
Akshita, we were mentioning about the fact that how this has been a pressure point by the US to ask India to do what it has been asking to do, that is open up its sensitive sectors. One thing is pretty clear from this is that India has outright denying opening agriculture and dairy and letting US and letting US get this advantage that they've been asking for a long time. But what is going to be challenging and I'm going to touch on the APAC region challenge that we are going to have, is the long-standing debate and the long-standing win of China +1 that we were looking for is now going to be at standstill for a while, because as per competitiveness in the region, it looks like people may now want to move on to buying products from Vietnam or Thailand, looking at the tariffs that they've been charged, which is lesser in terms of what has come on India. Secondly, it could also have a short-term impact on our Make in India initiative, which we were looking to in fact get on a global scale. But like Siddharth mentioned, that this could be a short-term impact, and the discussions that are currently ongoing with 6th round of negotiations that the US Washington officials are going to be
doing with the Indian officials in late August for a BTA in September or October could actually turn around the whole game for both the countries.
Okay, so, let's see what really happens going forward. But what's very clear here, and I'd like to bring in Pranay again on this broadcast, is that there's going to be a big, big question mark of what this really means for the India-America friendship and relationship, Pranay. Trump starts off his statement saying India is a great friend, but that doesn't count for much because of the rest of the text that's written there in his post.
Akshita, for President Donald Trump, every friend is, a partner, and with that partner also, he want to have a deal. So you see what initially he announced vis-a-vis with Japan. He sent out a letter to Japan raising the tariff of 25%. Within few days, like almost in the span of 2 weeks, now US and Japan struck a deal, and the tariff has been reduced from 25% to 15%. We have seen what he announced with respect to China, and now with the Stockholm or the recent round of talks with China, now the tariff truce has been extended for another 90 days. So Trump is all about making deals and making opening the avenue and a road for negotiations. So he always keep another alley open for negotiations. So what we are learning from the government sources is that this announcement should not be seen as a cessation of any further talks. Definitely, we are interested, we are keen to engage with the United States, and we are open to engage and carry forward these negotiations. But as far as our sensitivities are concerned, as far as our red lines are concerned, we have made it clear that these are the sensitive issues, and we have to protect our farmers, we have to protect our interests, and we have to protect our manufacturers. And there are certain sectors where we cannot concede to US demands, and there cannot be a parity because US is a different economy, ours is a different economy. Take example of the dairy sector. In the dairy sector, Indian farmers or Indian dairy producers are of a small, small and a marginal segment dairy producers, while on the other side, the American dairy producers are of the larger magnitude, of a bigger magnitude, and that's why there cannot be a parity in these two, these sections, and that's why these are the red lines. India has made it clear. But what we are learning from our sources that we cannot rule out the further negotiations scheduled for later next month on 25th and 26th of August, and the likelihood still remains that there is a possibility of a deal, as US struck a deal, after making this announcement with Japan and other countries.
So the dialogue will continue, but effective August 1st, that tariff will come in. The big question mark also, Siddharth, is what does Trump mean when he refers to penalties? There were some indications perhaps that this could have been coming. As Karishma said, there were a couple of sticking points, and then add to the constant warnings that Trump was issuing to BRICS. Was all of that indicative that this was coming, that the trade deal wasn't going to happen during the stipulated time frame?
So look at this. It's very hard to keep pace with President Trump and his decision making when it comes to tariffs. But I just